firefighters who respond. Now here's the First Alert meteorologist.
Your WPTV First Alert forecast this afternoon, comfy and breezy with highs in the low 80s. We're mainly dry with a slim chance of an isolated stray quick-moving shower. Tomorrow, more moisture moving into the area. The humidity increases. Highs in the mid-80s. Afternoon showers and storms popping up, moving west throughout the day. Friday, muggy and warm with highs in the mid-80s. Scattered showers and storms possible as a front stalls out north of the area. For the weekend, highs in the mid-80s. Some storms possible, but a little drier than Thursday and Friday. I'm WPTV First Alert meteorologist Katya Hall for WSTU 1450, Martin County's Heritage Station.
You are listening to WSTU, Stewart, Jensen Beach, Hope Sound, Martin County's Heritage.
It's time now for the Casey Ingram Show on WSTU. The opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not necessarily those of WSTU. WSTU does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU. It's time to call in with your questions and comments at 220-9788, 220-WSTU. And now, here's Casey Ingram.
Good morning, Treasure Coast. We are back on another beautiful Wednesday, as almost always here in Paradise, and we have a great show on tap. I have my great friend Eric Miller with Talk About Martin here in the studio.
Good morning, Martin County.
This is going to be another fun show. You know it always is when Eric is in the studio. Before we get into the great show that is on tap, and of course we're going to be doing updates. We're going to talk about a lot today, but of course we're going to get the important Indiantown updates. Eric's a great connection for us out there. But I want to remind everybody, with COVID, unexpected expenses, and illnesses, there are many issues that can cause your successful business to slump deep into the red. We're here to help, and we only get paid if we provide you a workout. Debt restructuring is complicated, and we are the negotiator between you and your creditors. Commercial Mortgage has been in the industry of small balance corporate finance since 2003. Our focus is on challenging corporate foreclosures, debt restructures, equity, and new debt solutions. These issues are often not easy to see or understand when you run a business and are faced with multifaceted debt challenges that include legal actions on various fronts. That's where we come in. We never charge a front fee or deposit. We are only paid if we successfully provide you a debt workout. Areas of expertise include hotels, marinas, office buildings, restaurants, apartments, multifamily, condos, golf courses, home builders, and land development, including new and repurposed development. Good morning, Dave Lewis. Glad you're tuning in. Finally, call Commercial Mortgage at 772-872-6099 or visit commercialmortgagellc.com for more information. And of course, folks, I'm going to say this every week through hurricane season, but it is just truly around the corner. Your boats are such a huge investment, and you really need to make sure you have a safe place to keep them in case there is a hurricane. Once a storm is named, it's pretty much impossible to find a safe harborage for your boat in town, so I cannot urge you enough to get a spot today. Reserve your place for hurricane season. Then you have peace of mind when a storm is named. You know you have a place to take your boat. And where would that be? Well, it's South Florida's best boat storage facility. It's located on the Okeechobee Waterway, and it's inland, very well protected hurricane hull at Indiantown Marina. It's also a do-it-yourself boat yard or a full-service boat yard. So if you have any work that needs to be done, Indiantown Marina is the place to go. Give them a call at 772-631-3272, 631-3272. And I know there's a lot of spring breakers down here. Families are visiting. You need to take them to the best kept secret in Martin County. Where is that? Well, it's the Fish House Art Center. It's down in the Pocket in Port Salerno, and you can look them up online before you head out, thefishhouseartcenter.com. And you're going to find there is something there literally for everybody. You can see their boardwalk features local artists. There's an Airbnb if you want to stay there, art gallery, boat charters, a marina, craft and creamery, craft beers, wine, and 24 flavors of ice cream, bike rentals, paddle boards, just a little bit of everything out there. So check them out, thefishhouseartcenter.com, and it's down in Port Salerno in the Pocket. So we have a great show on tap. And Eric,
let's hope so.
You know, we got a lot of things to talk about. One thing that came to my attention over the past week, Melissa March, she's running for Congress in CD18 on the Republican ticket. Mm-hmm. And she was very disappointed. An endorsement came out this past week from President Trump for Congressman Brian Mast. And she was really taken aback because one of the things this endorsement said was that he's a strong Second Amendment supporter. Mm-hmm. And she has put out a press release that his endorsement endorsement of pedophilia promoting gun-grabbing rhino Brian Mast was a mistake. And she is reaching out and hoping that President Trump will rescind this endorsement and really look at who he's endorsing. And, Eric, the truth is we really need to vet all our candidates and understand that just because they have an R behind them, it doesn't mean that they hold our Republican and conservative values.
You just gave me 20 minutes worth of talking points here. My head's running back to a conversation that I had with Brian Mast when Brian Mast was not a congressman yet at, what's the name of the Cracker Barrel up there on Canner.
Yes.
Okay.
Just
and
off 95.
He wanted my endorsement as Republican state committeeman. At that time, I was serving as state committeeman for the local party, which is a whole other Plato's Cave we could talk about. But the endorsement he wanted from me was to get into Congress. He told me at that time he only had one hurdle he needed to overcome, and he was pretty sure that he was going to get in. And that was that he had to figure out how to get out of the deal that he had made for a group that had built him a house as a disabled, accommodated house as a veteran, that he had to live in it for 10 years, and he still had time left on that, but he had to get out of that because he was in Palm Beach County, and he carpetbagged his way into the district at that point by breaking a lease and a handshake on people that did something for him. And then he touts his veteran status and his war status, which I respect him honorably for the way he served, and I respect the price and sacrifice that he paid for what he did for this country. I, too, am a veteran. I did not see combat where he did, and God bless you for that, Brian. I'm glad that you were on the wall, bro. I wish I could have been there with you. But as a congressman, your values and your ethics are not what this district needs. You have come out consistently and said that you think that there needs to be a ban on AR-15s, and don't tell me you didn't, because I've got the clip posted on nomomrniceguy.com, on talkaboutmartin.com, with you in a 15-minute interview talking about why you think it's okay to restrict the usage of firearms. Brian, that's not Second Amendment. You are not strong Second Amendment, and neither is Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz, Mr. Trump, is not strong Second Amendment either. And it comes down, folks, at this national level. Excuse me, I'm fired at. It comes down at the national level with topics like this that you say will never happen at home, but they happen here at home. This is happening in your backyard. These are people that are going and making decisions at a national level on our behalf, and people aren't even vetting them. Remember the promises they all made last time and see how many of them they kept before you buy into their hooey this time around and just say, ooh, he sounds like somebody I'd vote for if he'd go do that. Well, how much of it did he actually do? We've done shows on his insider stock trading, how he's one of the top insider traders.
2 of the top 10 spots Brian Mast has.
It's unbelievable. So Brian Mast, really, Mr. Trump? Really? And Dr. Oz?
And Dr.
Come on, guys. Where is the party? And the party starts local. When I said Plato's Cave, I mean you have people in there now that are decades with their hands in that party, and they are called the establishment. And they sit there and they put shadow puppets on the wall, and that becomes their reality, and they forget about what happens around them. And this party is a Plato's Cave. They're in their own echo chamber. They're compressed in their own dogma, and they're too blind to see what's going on around them. And a local official can make a mistake, but all of a sudden there's an excuse why. The party doesn't vet any of the candidates. They do nothing to recruit. If they do, it comes from that 20, 30-year-old establishment, okay, that's in there to do it. But if you don't have people that honor their standard citizenry and their obligations as a citizen, you get into problems like this. And folks, I'm not talking about flying a flag everywhere you go, but doggone it, there's something about being an American, and we got to get back to being Americans, because if we're not going to be America anymore.
Eric, I do feel like as Americans, we do need to take America back. I mean, this Trump endorsement, I'm going to come back to this right now with Dr. Oz and Brian Mast. I'm so disappointed. What I liked about Trump is he was his own man. He was not beholding to the establishment.
I agree with you.
And it looks like that's changing. And that is so incredibly disappointing and disheartening to me, because I thought finally we have somebody that's not beholding, who's not there to try and make more money, who's not really bought by the establishment. He can make his own decision because he's wealthy on his own accord. And here we are down the road, and it looks like he's just making endorsements. Somebody said, okay, Trump, this is somebody running on the Republican ticket. Okay, I'll endorse him. I mean, it looks like they're not looking into people at all, and I'm so disappointed with Trump in particular, because he had to fight the establishment. They did not want him to be president. He knows how tough it was to overcome that, and he's one of the few people that, in my opinion, ever could.
Exactly. He was in the right place at the right time. He was the right person that we needed to do the right things. But we can't take an individual and expect the individual to be any more capable of changing the world than you or I. Meaning, we can't just say, oh, look up there on the pedestal. They'll take care of everything. Not if we don't hold them accountable. Not if we don't participate in what gets them to the point that they're at. Because in the end, these are the people that are telling you what you can and cannot do. Have you ever wondered why the US 1 corridor looks the same no matter where you are in Florida? If you didn't see a sign, you'd never know you were going from county to county. That's because the building and development standards are the same across the board. Everybody can only do the same things within the same box. Certain counties allow more, certain counties allow less, but everything's the same.
It truly is. Alicia, thank you for tuning in. The Constitution says, shall not be infringed upon when elected officials vote to make changes that is infringing upon our rights.
Yeah.
You know? So, the bottom line here, folks, please look at who you're voting, vet them. When it comes to Congressman Mast, all of us, there's not a person out there that cannot appreciate the service and really what he gave to this country. There's no question about that. But we also have to decide who best represents our district and best represents our conservative values. He's running on the Republican ticket. So as a Republican, we have to look at what he's running on. Another thing, he was strongly supportive. I supported Brian Mast to begin with. And I was on TV and did a commercial for him, as a matter of fact. But, that's back when he said, I support term limits. And now that he's running for his fourth term, even though he signed a pledge that said, I believe in just 3 term limits. So, and then the pedophilia thing, joking about, having sex with 15-year-old girls. So there's a lot of things here that, as time has went on, that I have, in the Second Amendment is another one, changed my mind on Congressman Mast. And folks, we just need to do that. We need to look at our candidates elected. Just because you know their name doesn't mean they're doing the right job for you.
Exactly, and you're making my case in point. You are paying attention to the words that they're saying, and then you're watching the actions. Don't judge me on my words. Judge me on my actions.
Right.
Okay, what is the outcome of what I have done? I know that as a man, that my actions are going to become who I am.
Right.
And if I choose to do the right thing along the way, the trail I leave behind me is not a trail of destruction, deceit, and lies that I have to remember every time I take a step what I said back there, so that if somebody asks me up here, I remember. My mother taught me that a long, long time ago. But there's politicians out there that can get away with it because people... I just don't have the time. I need people like Casey to do it for me. I need Glenn Beck. I need, whoever to do it for me to keep me updated. Great. Use these people as a source, but do your own homework as well, folks. You have to take the time to listen to some of these meetings, to figure out what the issues are, to see how it works, so you know if you're actually being screwed.
That's absolutely right. You really have to do your own homework. There's no question about that. And there's so many things. You talk about that. I was just reading. I thought I had some notes on it, and I can't find it now. But The Laptop from Hell. That's the book from Hunter Biden, the laptop that he left behind. And folks, oh my gosh, it's well worth your time. You can get it on Audible and listen to it, read the book.
That's a conspiracy theory.
No, it's not anymore.
Oh, that's a conspiracy theory, isn't it?
Well, actually, here we go. It has money, drugs, affairs, even a child with a stripper that Hunter denies, but is proven through his DNA. He still denies it, but it was proven. His relationship with Jill's not so cozy, and the media cover up ahead of the election because they believed its content would cost Joe Biden the election. There's just so much in his laptop that's coming out now, and listening to that book, it's astounding. I mean, I feel like, the tentacles of corrupt government go so far. I mean,
We
it's
have
in
to be
everything.
very careful not to allow us to do this discussion, though, on a partisan basis. We have to keep standards and values as the foundation of discussion here. And the second we turn into it's the Democrats that are corrupt, the Republicans all of a sudden are in the shade, and they're going to be the ones doing the I've seen the greased
100%.
hands all the way through the
Make
system.
that clear. It's on the Republican and the
Yeah.
Democrat side, and you'll be surprised some of the names that come up in this book. By the way, there's
of
some that are
greased
local here to
hands.
South Florida. That it's like
Yeah.
really. So this is just an example. I think that, and you're right. I want to keep this nonpartisan, but Hunter's laptop is giving us insight to what happens when people get into power.
Oh, and his father has the ultimate switch at this point, or whoever's
100%.
got their hand in the back of the guy's head. I mean, we need to be talking about this. I mean, as a nation, we need to really be figuring out where we're at and what we're doing, because the chaos that exists right now is not producing a United States of America. And everyone that keeps trying to violate my Constitution and my rights, which I still have, and there's still a Constitution,
Right.
needs to really reconsider. There's an old saying in the airborne that says, "That which does not kill me should run." And if you are going to come and mess with my rights, and you think that I'm going to sit down and I'm going to allow you to just easily do that, no, I've got a big mouth, and I'm going to tell people about what's right and what's wrong, about what's going on with a lot of the governance that's taking place, and I hope that other people will too. We need to make our voices louder.
100%.
Louder. And this isn't partisan. This isn't about right. This isn't about, well, I won't say right. I'll say Republican or Democrat.
Brent Wallenberg has tuned in. Good to see you, Brent. There is not one special interest group that does not want cheap labor, and it is their best interest to flood this country with illegals who can send all their money back home where it has 10 times the value and send all our manufacturing overseas. And these are the companies our politicians hold stocks
I agree,
in.
and we could probably sit here all day long and cite examples at a national level as to how all of this is taking place, probably even at a state level. And anybody that doesn't have blinders on or actually pays half a cent of attention can see the conflicting news reports within a week's period of time. So the question you have to ask is, if it's so easily identifiable and it's really out there for anybody that wants to see it, most people want to see it. The first question the first statement I get from most people is, I'm only one person, what can I do? And the first thing that you have to do is to have your eyes open and understand when your rights are being violated. And the second thing you can do is stand for it and just say, no, you're not going to do that. You can't do that to me. I have a right, and you cannot take it away from me. Period. That's just the way it is. That's the rules that we live by as a country. And if you want to try to take them, well, good luck with that. You may get out in front for a while. You may get control of the system, but it's not the system that's broken. It's the people that are manipulating the system. And we can look at that as close to home as Indiantown. And you can see the same thing. It's a mirror. It's really kind of like watching an ant farm in the village of Indiantown. I live in their backyard. We made sure that we were able to get ourselves out of the boundaries of the village, so we're a little dent in their border. But
You don't have to trim your trees or bushes to a certen, or you can actually.
Yeah,
That's
we
right. It was
can.
hurting them before. It was hurting
we can
the
have
bush.
chickens on our property too.
Right.
But it's this ant farm of what's actually happening at a national level. You see, like we were talking about here, a woman that was just appointed to the Supreme Court based upon the color of her skin and the fact that can we say female anymore? I mean,
It was if you were not a black female, do not apply, and that's pretty much the message our president put out.
And just the hypocrisy in that statement and the progressive idea that somehow there has to be an equitable division of power amongst what? The most capable, or those that are most aligned with the Constitution, or those that have a certain skin color. And you see this with people like Janet Hernandez all of the time. Now, Janet Hernandez, for new listeners or people that don't know, is a councilwoman in Indiantown. She actually got reelected. How that happened, I have no idea. Well, I do have some ideas, but I won't go into those. Back to just people not paying attention. She is constantly making statements about her long black hair, about how Hispanic this and Hispanic that, and she made a recent statement at one of the last council meetings about how she wanted to appoint an individual to the LPA board, Local Planning and Zoning Board, and she felt that it was right that they voted for her because she was Hispanic. Hispanic.
Eric, I'm one of these people that I want the best qualified to represent us, to be elected. Even in private business, I want the best qualified for the job.
Exactly.
And I don't care what color your skin is, what color your hair is, who you come from, or where you are. I just want the best qualified. I think that's what's best for anything.
But
Our
they
country.
don't want that, and I can prove that. I can say that I'm not making this up because Susan Gibbs Thomas, another councilwoman, brought forward an individual that we know that served on the Martin County LPA, the equivalent of this little podunk 6,000 in population ant farm down here. When Susan suggested, because of Scott's qualifications and the fact that he actually qualified to be on the board, that she would like to nominate him, no one would even second it.
Oh, my goodness.
So, you know, it comes down to a housewife that's a good woman and is active in the church and has kids and has bake sales that she wants to promote. But the big reason is she's Hispanic, so she should be on there. When you don't vote for someone that actually has half a clue as to what they're doing to make sure that the development efforts, oh, by the way, Tractor Supply is now open. Tractor Supply is open in Indiantown. Boop, boop, boop.
It's coming
Shop
soon
local.
here to Palm City, as a matter of fact, too. So.
They can keep it. I'm still going over to see Adam and Dickie over at W&W Lumber. They're good people. Hey, good luck to Tractor Supply. Whatever. Big box. They're employing all of 4 people, I think, is the entire.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in that thing. And that's next to Indianwood. A wonderful little
Tell us about
trailer
Indianwood.
park.
Again,
Well-
we're speaking with Eric Miller here with Talk About Martin, and you can visit Talk About Martin online. Just Google it up, talkaboutmartin.com.
Yep. And you will be able to find several articles up there, Casey included. We actually have, under one of your shows that you and I did together, we have a copy of the pledge that Brian Mast signed, that he would not serve for any longer than 2 terms.
Supported 3 terms.
3 terms, rather,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
Yeah. So, thanks, Brian. Another promise kept. We appreciate that.
That's why politicians have the reputation they do. They say anything to get elected, and that's, like you said, we have to get involved and understand who's saying it, who's doing it. There are good politicians out there. I'm not going to put that as a broad scope 100%, but generally speaking, they have that reputation, and it's because generally a lot of them will say anything to get in, and then once they're in office, people kind of forget about what they promised.
Yeah, they do.
Don't hold them accountable.
I'm remembering names with statements this time and faces. I know myself and a few other people are working on some soundbite compilations.
I was going to say, we should start a website, too, with those.
That's not a bad idea. We should find somebody that has good video editing skills that could
Somebody like Impactful Media Group.
maybe that
right.
could help us piece that together. Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. But anyway, we're Indianwood. The Indianwood is an adult mobile modular home trailer park, basically. Very well kept. They have an HOA. They have a restaurant there. They have a golf course that's on the property, and it's a nice.
Sounds like a lovely community.
It really is, and for the most part, most of the people out there are really nice. It's a 55 plus, so you have an older retired community and some snowbirds that
And
come
I met
in.
a few of them out there when you had the park, when Councilwoman Thomas Gibbs had about the fire department.
Yes.
We had the gathering in the park. A few of them came out to spoke. They were hugely supportive of keeping Martin County Fire Department out there.
Exactly. Yeah, well, we all were. And that, there's another one to remind the voters coming up in Indiantown as to who was on what side and how many people were out in front of the council telling them that they needed to listen to us. But anyway, Dave Lewis, actually, the gentleman that started the show with us here, he's a resident out there in Indianwood. But anyway, Jenny Fields, property appraiser here in Martin County, has that property right around $40 million, appraised at $40 million for the entire shebang. They've been offered $100 million by a group called the Legacy Group. And the Legacy Group wants to come in and buy this little old trailer community in Podunk Nowhere, Indiantown, for $60 million over appraised value.
Sounds like they want to redevelop it to me. I don't know. I'm not them, but that's what it sounds like.
Well, it sounds to me like I don't have a 60% window difference between what the property appraiser says and what my
Right.
market value is. So yeah, there's something there. They're seeing something in
Seeing
the
some
wind,
value. That's right.
and I hope that I hope it's kind of short-lived, because it's going to displace a lot of people that are on fixed incomes that really don't know what's coming at them.
And you've talked about gentrification out in Indiantown previously.
I've written articles on this for the past 4 years about how the development efforts and the desire to look, if you grew up having dirt floors in your house and you had dirt roads everywhere back in the day, and there are people in Indiantown, it's still a community of people that have generations of families that have lived there, and there are a large number of these people that are generational Americans that have lived there that came from dirt floor. I've heard the stories from dirt floor in the homes to being some of the richest people in Martin County, but they're some of the most humble and righteous people that you would know as well. But when you come from those backgrounds and those hard times to get to that point, to be some of the most affluent people, you want to experience some of the munificence of your effort. So it becomes a habit of, not a habit, it's a naivete almost, because they don't understand what inviting all of this new development into the market so quickly with so little thought. I mean, if we're putting people on the local planning and zoning board to review it first, and their best qualification is being a homemaker in Latin, I think that you might have a little bit of problem with overdevelopment, and that could help explain it too. The leadership of the people, Howard Brown especially, who has an FBI investigative, the largest corruption scandal in the history of Florida within a municipal government took place under his watch for 4 years in Opelika.
This is your village
manager. And the rest, everyone outside of Susan Gibbs Thomas, can't do anything but sing this man's praises on how well he does. And that's because you have council people like Anthony Dowling that openly supports BLM, is a member of a group called YEO, Young Elected Officials, led by people like Elian Omar, AOC, the radical progressive left, the same BLM type radical progressive left that just shot up a subway. So now you have a council person standing with an organization called BLM, a person standing with BLM and a shotgun and weaponry shooting people up in a so your leadership's values and principles, like we were saying earlier, my words can say one thing, but my actions actually produce outcomes and show who I'm standing alongside and who I'm not
Actions
standing
speak
alongside.
far louder. That's right.
And when you watch that trajectory down the path that it takes, and you watch how the words don't match up with the actions and outcomes, that's when you kind of get a sense. We do this in our own life with people at work, with people that wherever it is. If we're not paying attention to what's going on around us. So all we have to do is listen.
I have another question here for you. I talked with a coworker who said he's just working on a giant marijuana growing farm in Indiantown. Wondered if you'd heard anything about that.
Yeah, there's Fox Brown Road. There's a huge farm out there.
And there you have it. So yes, that's true.
Oh yeah, agricultural.
Yeah.
It's legal now.
Yep, it is legal.
It's
here in Florida.
pharmaceutically legal for people to have it as long as you have a prescription for it.
Right.
But
right.
you can't have. I was told that they've taken away your concealed carry.
Oh really?
Yeah. See, this is what happens when you allow the government to get in the way. Why do I need a concealed carry permit to carry a gun to begin with? This is another Second Amendment right.
I was going to say, we're coming back to the Second Amendment.
It's like the stupid ghost guns. Yeah, every criminal that's going to go out and hold up a liquor store spending 20 hours building their own ghost gun on a 3D printer so they can go hold up a store.
Right.
Right? That's not happening.
No.
The more we allow these people that we give the power to take our rights away and give them more power to control us, we're going to end up in a really, really bad place.
Well, I keep saying we need to look at Australia as an example of giving up gun rights. and what has happened to these
Exactly.
people. They're
Shanghai.
they're actually in camps now with the COVID camps. I mean, I don't know if that's today, but through COVID, they've been COVID camps. Folks, the video that came out of Australia was just so disheartening. The government came in and controlled these people. They're doing peaceful protest, and they had no way to defend themselves. And the government, I mean, they were very forceful against these people. It was horrific, and nobody had any way to defend themselves anymore. And that's what happens.
I hope people are waking up and they've seen the power grab that the government can actually make and the overreach, even here locally. Don't say anymore it can't happen here, because it did happen here. The overreach with people in federal and global governments that Shanghai, just take a look at Shanghai. There's an extreme for you. They've really been Shanghai.
Yes.
They're locked down in Shanghai. But we did the same thing here. I remember sitting and watching commissioners sit up there, and we had to take our mask off so we could talk, but that was safe. But then we had to put our mask back on because we got to set an example for all of our staff so that you can't run around without your mask. Look out, there's a bug, there's a bug, there's a bug. At a certain point, it got so hilarious to watch that it's like, guys, somebody grow up there. We need adults running things, especially at a local level.
Local level is what impacts us more than anything, honestly.
But we're allowing the politicians and the staff and everyone else to set the narrative. The whole zeitgeist, the whole flow of conversation comes from someone else, it seems, these days. We need to be the inspiration, the source, the light, the ones that are able to talk about these things, not in a political, hypertensive, it was him, it was orange guy, it's the dementia guy, it's this, it's that. Forget all that. Let's talk about basic human rights and principles, the same things that you would slap me in the face for, like Will Smith did if I violated your rights. Okay? But no, somehow we can allow politicians to get away with this stuff. Why? Why? Because you don't pay attention. You don't realize that as long as you can go down to your local Burger King and get a burger, or go to Publix, or go to the local pub and turn your air conditioner on and the lights come on when you come home and the garbage gets, oh my God, don't let the garbage get picked up for 2 weeks and watch what's going to happen.
100%. People do not seem to get involved unless it's in their face. Take Brightline, for example. We were fighting that since 2014. I started Florida Not All Aboard, and we put up a pretty good fight. But it's like people now are going, oh my gosh, they're going so fast through our community. How can this be? And how can they not replace the bridge? We were saying this, 8 years ago, and it was so tough. We had a lot of people get involved, but it was tough to get people to pay attention because they don't until it's in their face. And next year when that train starts up, people are really going to start screaming and yelling, because then it's going to be running and they're really going to see it. But the time to get involved was 8 years ago.
Yeah, it was.
And that's the same thing with anything. When you get elected right now, when we're going through elections and deciding who we're going to, put into office, the time is to do it at election time. Once they're in office, then we complain, oh, they voted this way or that way. Well, then do something about it the next election cycle. But
how many people call you at election time and ask you,
hey, who are you voting for on the judges? Who are you doing? I just don't have time to follow all this stuff.
I do. Yep.
I as a committeeman, I had, honestly, over 100 people every year would call and say, I don't know who to vote for.
That is so true. There are so many people that don't look at the issues themselves. They don't look at the people themselves, and they do. They call people like you and I that are involved to find out who we're voting for.
It's amazing to me.
It is.
Well, you know the story we did on food shortages, right?
Yeah, I remember very clearly.
Amazing story, and it's gone downhill from there.
Next Door took it down. I was sharing it, and they were like all upset because it was Michael Yon, because he was a contributor to Steve Bannon's show. It's too political, and I said, since when is food shortages political?
When your president said, President Biden
even said it,
has said, but it's a conspiracy theory. Here's the deal. I'm on all of the channels that I'm plugged into where I get my information from. All right. I'm looking at what's going on in my world because my world affects me.
Right.
And I don't like to be affected. I like to keep a nice perimeter around myself to stay safe. Everyone is saying that come September seems to be the trigger month that things are going to start to get pulled on the food shortages. And to all of my good friends
that's
in
when
Martian
harvests come in, at least in America.
Oh, here, yeah, in the States. Mm-hmm. So to all of my good, wealthy friends in Martian County that think that it cannot happen here, let me tell you, all of your money cannot buy what is not there. And when it is not there and you need it outside of food and pharmaceuticals and gasoline and other things that you need for your lifestyle. I hope that you have a plan and are somewhat prepared to be able to deal with bank holidays for 2-3 weeks at a time, for blackouts and brownouts on the power grid going down, food shortages and things not showing up on shelves and rationing. And if you think it won't happen here, Germany about 3 weeks ago, on Sunday you went into the store and you bought a head of lettuce. When you went back in on Monday for the tomatoes and everything else were 50 to 20% higher. The prices went up overnight in Germany, 20 to 50% on all items across the board. And the reason is, look at aluminum cans. There's a shortage on aluminum right now. Why? Embargoes. Well, we're in what's known as a pre-global war at this point, and it's a sanctions war. It's an economic war. It's probably going to turn into a data war. So what happens when your cell phones go down, or FP&L gets jammed up because they get a bug from China or Russia? These are real threats that face people, and to think that they're not going to happen here, you better be ready, because you're not going to call 911 to come and save you in this situation.
No, and Brent, he's bringing up the other side here. Orson Welles used the media in the 30s to induce fear that Martians had invaded and the whole country went into hysteria and was running to hide in the woods. Sounds like a lot what is going on here. I'm not so sure. I mean, right now there is a fertilizer shortage. That is there's no joke about it.
This isn't hyperbole. And if it is hyperbole, I will come back to you at the end of this year, and I will. You can play the clips back for me where I am adamant about this, and I'll munch on my hat at least until I make a hole in it. I won't eat the whole thing, but I'll take my words back. But I don't see that happening, just because, like you said, the fertilizer, not only a shortage, but the price of the fertilizer is skyrocketed. And we've gone through a process with our farming process that we can't grow anything without chemicals.
Right.
Thank you, Dow Chemical. And every one of these chemicals that they put on those fields are being absorbed into the plants and the food that you're eating, like the microplastics that you're breathing in, and they're now starting to find in human lungs. Wonder why. I remember when we had the styrofoam containers that came out for McDonald's to save the ozone.
Right.
But then we had to get rid of styrofoam because it was oil, and then we had to go to plastic. But now we got to get rid of plastic because there's a plastic island floating in the ocean, and we got to go back to paper bags because paper bags are more environmentally friendly, and that's a 30-year journey of just nonsense. But that's the kind of chaos that takes place in the background when you elect these people to go, oh, watch this. We'll turn the whole lumber market on its ear. We're going to get rid of paper products. We're going to boost the price of petroleum, and we're going to go ahead and say we got to move to plastic. One regulation like that, and it's done.
And it's amazing how interconnected we are now in this world. I mean, we are between industries, between countries. Something happens in one industry, it really has a domino effect across the board. And I think that's part of the issues that's scary here. I mean, let's talk a minute here, Eric. This just came out this week. The inflation rate. Prices in the U.S. climbed to their highest rate since 1981, rising 8.5% over the year end in March, and the fastest pace of annual inflation in 40 years. Over the past 12 months, inflation has skyrocketed at 8.5%, outpacing wage gains by 2.9%. Inflation has flooded every area of American life. Gas is up 48%, airfares up 24%, furniture's up 16%, milk 13%. The food index rose 1% in March alone compared with February and is up 8.8% compared to the prior 12 months. The gasoline index rose 18.3% in March and accounted for over half of all the items' monthly increase. The national average price of gasoline is now $4.11 a gallon compared to just $2.86 a year ago. The average U.S. household has spent an extra $327 in March due to inflation, roughly up $297 per household in February. And the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, jumped 7.9%. So, remember just a few months ago they were saying this isn't transitory?
That's a conspiracy theory. Yeah, we're just trying to get people hyped up. Well, maybe people should get hyped up a little. And I wrote an article back in 2016 called The Newly Awakened, and sat and just watched the zombies walking back and forth, not realizing what was actually taking place around them. and wondered what it was going to take to get people to actually wake up to the fact that they've been duped. And I think once there's enough pain, most people start to wake up because they don't like pain. The nice thing about the 8.5% inflation number is that it's actually much, much higher because they've taken out things like if you go back to the Reagan era or the Jimmy Carter era and you actually use the same economic indicators, sectors, rent,
Right.
something like that, that you put into it, it's well above 15% at this point, and we're probably marching towards a 20 to 25%. Now, I'm no economist, but I'm telling you that the information from people that I've listened to in the past that have said things that have come to fruition, again, their words and their actions, their words and their outcomes. If you're going to make a prediction, hopefully it's not a prediction. It's based on some kind of fundamental
Right.
knowledge of the markets, which people have a lot more than I do.
Right.
But I listen to people because I see their character. I see the outcome. You trust the pedigree of someone. It's not that a college degree gives you the pedigree. You follow what I'm saying?
It sounds to
It's
me
the
like you're
character of
saying
the person.
actions mean more than words.
Yeah,
And
actions mean more than
character
words.
are actions.
Yeah,
Your
and-
actions are your character. In my
And if your words are going to be what you are saying that there's going to be an outcome for, and you want to be a soothsayer because none of us can really tell the
Right.
future, then so be it. But at least it's an educated prediction.
That's right. It is.
One mind can't do it all. You have to have multiple minds, just like in a supercomputer. You have to have multiple processors. The more minds you have on an issue, the better off we are, and that's why we all need to get back to talking about what the reality is in our world. We need to walk outside of the cave for a while and look at the sun again and say, what are the things locally that most impact me? What are they, folks? You're listening. What are the things that most impact you here in Martin County that you would like to get rid of? Is it traffic? Is that one thing that you'd like to deal with? Well, let's talk about the traffic. What are the sources of the traffic? Is it overdevelopment? How do we put that alongside property rights? But you don't even find the local parties. Heck, the Democratic Party, I don't even think has a storefront anymore. The Republican Party, I believe they still do. They're somewhere around in here.
They do.
There are no forums. This is one of the things I was trying to advocate for as a state committeeman with the party, and they wanted nothing to do with it here at a local level, was to put together forums of discussion. How can we get people together to sit and talk about the items that are important and not make them a photo op for currently sitting Republican commissioners or council people or whatever it is. Yay party. But when we were the only party when I was there in the state of Florida that actually had a platform. We put in our bylaws that we were to develop what we stood for as a Republican Party in Martin County. And we did that so that we could tell people, if you want to be a part of what we're doing, here's what we believe in. But you could not get anyone outside of a handful of us to hold the elected officials that we worked so hard to get elected. Why? If you're not going to uphold Republican principles and values, then why did we work so hard, and why are people so involved with this local party?
Well, this comes back to Trump's endorsement of Dr. Oz and Congressman Mass. We really, as our Republican Party, we need to take it back. And we have to vet these individual people. Once they're elected, getting elected, Dr. Oz is running for election, running for office. These are the times, Eric, that we have to follow up with these people. They do impact us locally.
Yeah.
And if we're not following up, and if once they're in, I'm kind of going on a little bit of a rant here, but the Republican Party just automatically supports the incumbent. Why?
They have an R next to their name.
It's just not right. It needs to be
No, it
people
is
that
not.
represent the Republican values, the conservative values, the platform that you put up. If they no longer are representing those values,
Then they're still Republicans. That's the point.
just because they have an R behind their name.
Well, yeah, but
it is the
the
point.
state of Florida doesn't even have a platform.
Which
The
that seems
Republican
crazy.
Party of Florida does not have a written platform of ideals, principles, and values. They do not have one.
It's interesting, and it's hard to believe.
Well, I had a sitting lieutenant governor ask me one time why I wanted to recruit so many more people into the party, which, by the way, seems they're doing that. They have 100,000 registration lead.
That's right.
Okay,
Over the
good
Democrats,
job.
that's right.
Guys, don't blow it. But why do you want to recruit so many people in? He said, we can control a smaller number of people easier than we can a large number.
This is disappointing and disheartening to hear in politics.
It's a
It really is.
cult.
It
It's
is.
a cult.
It's about control and power is what it is.
It is.
Kim, thank you for tuning in. She says, I recommend The Great Reset by Glenn Beck. The world is changing. People should be awake, not woke. And, Kim, that's my next book. And I hear Glenn Beck talk, and I'm anxious to read that book.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree
Half
more.
the book is footnotes. It's
it
all
really?
referenced source.
100%. Go with the facts.
100% of it.
Go with the facts. That's what I try to do is just look up facts. You can't argue with facts. And people will.
Yeah,
But you know what?
I have a hard time anymore talking to people about Republican or Democrat because it's so much bigger than that. I mean, if we're to be adults, aren't there certain characteristics that we would try to teach our children that they need to grow in themselves, to be able to be aware of their world as they're growing up, to make them have a better chance of living and surviving? Don't we teach those things anymore?
We do, Eric, and this is probably the toughest thing, and I think about this a lot because I am involved a lot with politics and in the community, and I think as Americans, we have these two parties that really control the country, the Democrats and the Republicans. So we have to choose one or the other because otherwise, I hate to say it, folks, I know there's a lot of people that are independents and otherwise, but you don't have a voice. You rarely ever see. Usually, if an independent gets elected, it's because they were first a Republican or Democrat and switched parties. Beyond that, if you choose another political party, you can forget about getting elected. So it's super tough to. How do we change? How do we take America back?
Le Pen.
How do we make it back?
Le Pen. There's a name that's in the news again. Her father in France started, actually Marine's the one that's more responsible for it. She started more of a political movement than a party. And there's a big difference. A party requires membership, affiliation, meetings, bylaws, structure, this, that, the other thing. What do you stand for? Blah, blah, blah. And that's the whole thing that has gotten us to the point where it would be very hard to get another third party started unless, as these newly awakened people start to awaken and they're realizing what's actually going on around them, they start to build their own community. You end up with a movement. That's why it's so important to stand on what you believe. When you're in a conversation with somebody, even if it's a Republican that's not doing the right thing, you can't be afraid to stand there and say, well, I just don't think that's right. I don't think we should be doing that. Because why? Well, how's your reasoning? You're reasoning for the reasons of right and truth, or are you reasoning for the right reason because you want it? I don't know. Casey, it's tough.
It is tough.
You can't change people, and people aren't going to change until there's pain, and they're going to look to other people to make all the decisions for them, and they're willing to go along wherever the river flows. But I have to warn these people that when you allow a mentality of a progressive nature to take over the helm of the boat and let it flow, you're going to end up in some places you don't want to be, and one of them is going to be at a waterfall's edge. And I've made this analogy before. I got off the boat several years ago, and I've been watching that little dot in the horizon, waving to it as it goes down that progressive path that everyone is following. I refuse to get on the boat with them. You can't have my America keep going that way, because, see, we went down and we scouted that. We were going to take our boat down there too, but we went ahead and we looked forward a little bit, and we saw there's a giant waterfall. So have fun with that over there. Bye. We're camped over here. Have fun.
100%.
You got to get involved, guys.
Brent says Ukraine was not prepared and paid a heavy price. How prepared are we? An ounce of prevention is worth more than 100 pounds of cure. Everything could be grounded, and this would minimize the effects of an EMP. I agree. An ounce of prevention is worth more than 100 pounds of cure every day of the week.
Yeah.
So no matter what it is. And I'm going to go back to our discussion here about Republicans, Democrats, and the parties in general. On the national level, myself personally, it seems a bit overwhelming. But where it does make a difference, and I still feel 100% that our vote does count, is locally. And that's why that's why we really have to still be involved locally, because no matter what, our personal taxes, our property taxes, our business regulations here that are locally made, this is who we're electing. It does matter. It affects us more than anything that they do nationally. And, I'm going to look right here in Stewart just this past week on Costco. And, some citizens got involved. And now I'm not here to say which side is right or wrong, but some citizens got involved. They were opposed to what happened with Costco being approved where it was. They petitioned and had a hearing. And my goodness, the administrative law judge actually sided on the citizens' side. So they
Way to
said
go,
it didn't
guys.
correctly assign a future land use designation for the 49-acre property, and there's some more to that. But this was a huge win for the citizens. They spoke up and said, I don't think that this was approved properly. And it doesn't mean Costco's not coming. It doesn't mean that the city can't go back and correct what the judge said was done inaccurately. But it does say that your voice does matter.
Exactly right.
Don't ever think it doesn't.
Oh, how many people out there keep a change cup?
I do.
Okay.
Several
I've
of
got
them.
all over the place.
Right.
But it's just a penny.
Yes.
It's just a dime.
They sure add up,
It's
don't they?
just a nickel. But every time you speak up, it's just a penny. It's just a dime. And before you know it, you've left this big pot of change at the end of the road for yourself.
That's a great analogy.
It's the truth, though. Every little bit counts. And if you're doing a little and I'm doing a little, we're doing a lot together. But it goes back to being a citizen. I'll ask all of my good Christian friends out there. Most Christians will have the answer to this pretty quickly, and you hopefully have thought about it. What does it mean to be a Christian? Now, when you start putting your wheels are turning and you're thinking, now ask yourself this, what does it mean to be an American citizen? What are your similar responsibilities as a citizen that you would say, as a Christian, I have these sets of responsibilities? Forget morals and values. Let's just say I have a responsibility to my fellow citizen for what? Start asking yourself that. And if you can't come up with the list, may God bless you. Please start looking for one. If you go to nomomrniceguy.com, just put in 28 Principles of Liberty, and you'll find 28 of those that you can start working by. George Washington did a nice little handbook at the age of, I think, 14 while he was out in the field surveying on his own in the wilds on rules and etiquette and things that men do and should not do, how you should not walk through your house half-dressed, how you shouldn't spit into the fire. At 14, he was thinking about these things that build the character and the sense of not George Washington, but a man, a human, a citizen. Let's take away the label of I, and let's get back to the label of American. Let's all be Americans again, because in that we're individuals that look out for each other. And that's the way this is supposed to work. 50 free little nations all united in one union into the United States of America. We are 50 incubators. We've got to get back to being individuals again. It all starts with the individual.
Hear, Eric. Hear, Eric. It truly does start with the individual. And folks, I have a series, Meet the Candidate, as we're coming up on another election season. I'll be inviting them all on the show, and it's your chance to reach out and find out what they're about. And, reach out through Facebook and ask questions of these candidates to make sure we're electing the people that are going to represent you the best.
Amen.
And next week, we're going to have Dr. Beth Falls. She's from Orca's Pollution Mapping in the South Fork. It's amazing, this pollution mapping that they've done, and it shows some really interesting pollution areas in the South Fork. We're also going to have in May Bob Inglis. He's the executive director of Republican Conservatives Addressing Climate Change. Dr. Millay, the superintendent of Martin County Schools, will be on May 11th, and Chairman Marilyn Mager will be on with the Martin County Republican Party after that. So we have a lot of great shows coming up. I appreciate you tuning in. And Eric Miller, talkaboutmartin.com. You are always welcome here, and always a great show, great information.
I have fun talking with you, Casey.
Same here, Eric. Y'all take care. We'll see you next Wednesday at 10.